So we're about to head outside and work on our chicken coop today, and I'm going to show you the two things that I decided to splurge on for our coop. But before we head out there, I want to get a few things prepped for dinner tonight because I hate it when I'm working on projects all throughout the day and then we come in cold and hungry and there's nothing ready for dinner. And I'm trying something new tonight. So, whenever the temperatures start to drop, I always find myself wanting to bake things or to make soups and chilies and stews. And tonight, I've been wanting to make some chicken noodle soup, but making our own pasta. So I took a pasta class a few weeks ago and I was taught how to make pasta dough and how to shape the pasta and was given this recipe for sourdough egg pasta. I have been dying to try this recipe. I think it sounds amazing and I just love that it has the sourdough aspect, but you need to let your dough rest or ferment for throughout the day. So I got that going and I was taught that whenever you make homemade pasta, you cook the noodles in just boiling salt water and you scoop the noodles straight into either the sauce or in this case the soup, and you don't actually strain your noodles. So I decided to go ahead and get the broth, the veggies, and the chicken portion of the chicken noodle soup all ready to go. So I sauteed onions, garlic. We had some parsley and some sage still in our herb garden. So I sauteed all of those together, and I actually had cooked a whole chicken earlier in the week. So I just saved some chicken breasts from that, chopped those up into little bite-sized pieces, and added those into the stew. So once I got that already, I just had it sauteed until I got everything nice and tender. And the beauty with the Instant Pot is that you can saute in the pot that you're also going to cook your soup in. So I love doing that. Here's some bone broth from the whole chicken that I made earlier in the week as well. So the soup was prepped, and now it's time to head back outside and get started on our coop.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done.
So now that we're ready to start the coop, we did need to set up a few other things. We have our saw just on our old kitchen table. This was the kitchen table we had in our small apartment when we lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it now serves as the table for our saw, which isn't perfect, but it works well for this little space, and I just help hold the other end of the board, and it works. It's not a perfect situation, but you don't always need that perfect situation to get the job done. So, in the plans for this chicken coop, I have sort of three separate parts that I have envisioned over the years. And the first part that we're working on right now is the actual coop part. And I really wanted a walk-in coop style, which means that you can actually walk into the coop where the hens lay their eggs, where they roost, and then the run is the second part, and we won't be working on that part yet. We just have the lumber and supplies for the walk-in portion, and so essentially you're building a shed, if that makes sense. So I wanted to be able to walk inside just for making it easier to clean, and I'm planning on using the deep litter method for inside our coop as well, and that just goes a lot easier when you can walk into your coop. So our structure will be 8 feet by 8 feet, which will give us space for about 20 chickens. And we felt like that was a really good start for our family and for our homestead. And we have this space to add on or do more things in the future. But for now, this is just for our laying hens. And if we plan on doing meat chickens in the future, we will have another structure for those. But for now, we have an 8 foot by 8 foot structure. And I've said this before that I really like to just wing it when building things. And with this structure, we actually are not doing that. So we found some plans from online from a construction company.
Rowan, that's the first wall. We just finished the first wall.
Now do we bring it all the way to the chicken coop?
Not yet. I think we might do a couple more walls. There it is.
Back wall.
Back wall. High five, buddy.
So, as promised, I want to share two splurges, I guess you could say, that our family was willing to make for this coop. And one of them was this automatic chicken coop door opener. And so this will go on the outside of our coop, and we can program the time for when it should open in the morning to let the chickens outside of the coop. And then it will automatically close in the evening once the chickens are all inside. I just didn't want to have to do that chore manually, and especially because chickens will likely be a chore that the kids do. I wanted something that would be more reliable in keeping our hens safe, especially because we actually do have raccoons, and people always ask about coyotes, and I've never seen any. I haven't heard my neighbors talk about them, but just in case, we're going to take that extra precaution. So we're really excited to try out this little splurgy door.
After a lot of discussion, we figured out the dimensions we need to make for our windows. So we're gonna go ahead and just build the frames for our 3 windows we're gonna have.
So we decided to go with having 3 windows that we ordered online on the coop. One on the south side, one on the north side, and we purchased windows that could be easily opened with a screen so that we could have really good airflow through there. What I've noticed with our rabbits over the summer that they struggle more in the heat than they do in the cold. And I've heard that that can sometimes be the case for chickens. And with our rabbits, proper airflow was key. So having all these windows that we can open on a whim over the summer, just really easy, will be super helpful in adding that proper airflow. So we got one wall framed, and it was the easiest wall of them all. The back wall that didn't have windows or doors or anything that had to be with it. And we also got started on getting the little framed out portion for our windows. And while my husband was finishing that up, I saw signs of hunger in the children. And so I decided to head back in and finish up making our chicken noodle soup. So this is sourdough egg noodle dough was done fermenting, and I'm just following the instructions that it says on the recipe. So it says to cut it into different sections and lay those under a damp towel so they don't dry out, and use a lot of flour on your counter space just so that the dough doesn't stick. So the thing is about making your own pasta is that it actually cooks really quickly. So I knew that this part would be a quick process of just rolling out the dough and cutting it into strips, cooking it for just a few minutes, and then throwing it into the broth, the chicken, veggie stock that has already been cooking all day. So this really only took like 15 minutes, and it was quick. As you can see, I am using a jar to roll out my pasta. So in the process of moving back in May, we lost several items, and one of those was my rolling pin. And for some reason, I just keep forgetting to get a new one. And I don't roll things out super frequently, but when I do, I keep regretting not purchasing a rolling pin. So you can roll it out, but you can also use a like pasta machine that really flattens out the noodles super, super thin. And that would have probably been a little bit easier, but honestly, just doing this with a rolling pin would be perfect. Some of our noodles were a little bit thick, but I know that if I had a good rolling pin, that would be totally fine. So once you get those all rolled out, you literally just toss them into some boiling salt water and let them cook for 2 to 3 minutes max. What they told me in the class was once the noodles start to float like this, then give them another 30 seconds or so, and then they're good to go. Then they are ready to just be scooped up and dropped into your soup or when we've made this in the past with pasta sauce, just right into the sauce. And this smelled so good. In the class, told us about how nothing tastes as good as a freshly made pasta noodle, and I could not agree more.
It's the next day and we have just a couple more hours till it gets dark, so we're gonna get in as much as we can. We made the windows yesterday, so now we're gonna go ahead and start framing the side walls.
So this will be our first slightly more complicated wall because it does have the window in it, but it wasn't too difficult. We already had the windows made and we just slid it in between the studs that we will have for the wall. We just had to make sure we had it centered right and had it at the proper height that we were wanting. We also had lots of young feet hopping in and out of the studs and the 2x4s that we were screwing in, but that's just life with building with the kids. They love being around us whenever we're doing projects, and we love having them, but it does slow things down a little bit, and that's okay. Okay, thing number two, you guys, that I decided to splurge on. This was an even bigger splurge. So I don't know why, but I was really drawn to this hen gear rollout nest box. I had seen a couple other people have rollout nesting boxes, and I just love the idea. So what happens is the eggs will go inside this little nest box, and the as soon as they lay their eggs, the egg will roll down and it will roll into this collection area that the hens can then they can't step on it, they can't poop on it, and it keeps your eggs a lot cleaner. And you have the option to have your rollout box go in front or in rear rollout. So if you do the rear rollout, which is what we're planning on doing, you can have that actual collection part sticking out of your coop so that you don't even have to go inside the coop to collect the eggs. And I was really drawn to this because I want our kids to be able to collect the eggs and not have to worry about mean chickens when they're trying to get the eggs out.
Sun is going down and everybody's getting hungry. We have not finished this nesting box. It's kind of complicated to build. So we're actually gonna bring it inside and finish building it in our house where it's warm, and we'll have some dinner. So that might be all we can get in for tonight. So we have 2 walls built. Hopefully tomorrow we can get the rest.
So we got that finished being built in the evening, and this one is the small nest box, and it can do up to 20 chickens.
All right, it's the next day and we are getting going on our third wall. It'll be this side. We haven't done the front yet, but it is kind of raining today, so we'll be working in the garage.
So this next wall was a little more tricky because we were adding in the window and also the section where our rollout nesting box was going to go. So we had to do a little bit of research on how you're supposed to mount the nesting box. So we weren't sure about where to measure or how big to make the actual space for the nesting box. But once we researched that a little bit, we found out that where we need to measure it, how it was going to hang. And so it would kind of lay flush with the outside of our coop, except for the actual gathering box location. So that took a few minutes and a little bit of trial and error because we wanted that to be snug. We didn't want the box to have a chance to slide in or out.
One more down and one more to go. So that's, I guess, 3 down. That looks good. So that's where the nesting box goes. Nesting box and window. This will be like the north wall, right? North wall.
Yeah.
And the nesting box will be able to get the eggs from the outside of the coop, is what we're hoping. And there it is.
As the day started to get darker and then kids started to get hungrier, we were working a lot more quickly on our last wall. So with this wall, it's the front or the west side of our walk-in coop. It's a little bit taller. It has a window and it also has a door. So we had to navigate how big we wanted each of those things to be. So we are finishing up our last side wall, and I think that's gonna be, well, that's definitely gonna be the last thing we do today. So we're gonna have all 4 of our walls ready to go. And then I think we'll have to wait a couple days before we can get them up, but it'll be so exciting to see like a standing structure.
All right. Okay, can you get off
Up.
me, River? Go on.
She likes you.
All right. I want some pets. Okay.
And then-
Okay. Oh yeah, that's nice. She's purring.
River, we have our last few pieces. It's dark, we're hungry, but we're almost done with the frame.
It may not seem like a whole lot was accomplished this week. We've got our walls built. They're not up yet. And that's okay. The whole point of this isn't for us to rush into having the perfect homestead right away. The whole point of this is to take our time to build these things, to involve our kids, and to spend time as a family, because that's exactly why we wanted to homestead in the first place.